Imagine being alone at home. The lights are off, and everything seems normal until small details begin to change. Things you can't explain, but that make your heart race. Today, you will hear 3 stories of people who discover that their own house could be the scariest place in the world. Get ready, because after watching, you will never look at your home the same way again. Clara parked the car in front of the house that would, from that night on, be her new home. The engine went silent, and for a moment, she just sat there, observing the facade lit by the yellowish glow of the streetlight. The house had an old air, with dark wooden walls and tall windows framed by curtains that were already installed. It was exactly the kind of place she had been looking for. Far enough away to give her peace, but not so distant from the city that it felt cut off from the world. As she removed the boxes from the car, Clara took a deep breath. The smell would mix with the damp earth from the recent rain awakened in her a mixture of nostalgia and anxiety. This move meant a new beginning. After years of sharing noisy apartments with college roommates and annoying neighbors, she would finally have silence to write her books. As soon as she crossed the door, she noticed how the space seemed larger inside. The floor creaked lightly with every step, but it was a soft creak, almost comforting, as if the house was breathing along with her. The living room was wide, decorated only with a few pieces of furniture the previous owners had left. A worn armchair, an empty bookshelf, and a coffee table. Everything seemed in order, but there was something in the air, a sensation difficult to define, as if each wall had stories that didn't belong to her. Clara walked through the rooms one by one. The kitchen still bore marks of recent use. Dented pans, loose cutlery in a drawer. In the hallway, a narrow door revealed a smaller, empty bedroom, which she decided to leave closed for now. In her main bedroom, there was only a simple bed and an old wardrobe. She placed her suitcases on the floor and, for a few seconds, heard nothing but absolute silence. The silence was almost deafening. Clara was used to the constant sound of the city, car horns, conversations, footsteps in the apartment hallways. Here, there was only the wind beating against the roof tiles and the occasional creak of wood. A silence so deep that, instead of calm, it demanded her attention. Determined not to give in to silly impressions, she turned on a few lights and began organizing her things. She stored clothes, placed her laptop on the makeshift desk, and tried to imagine herself writing there through the night, without interruptions. The idea made her smile. Hours later, already in pajamas, she made one last round through the house. She locked the front door, checked the windows, and turned off the lights, leaving only the bedside lamp on in the bedroom. The bed creaked lightly when she lay down, but she soon settled between the cold sheets. Before closing her eyes, she heard a distant sound, almost imperceptible, a creak in the hallway. Clara laughed at herself. Of course it's going to creak. The house is old, I'm tired, and I need to relax. She turned to her side, pulled a blanket up to her chin, and let sleep take over. The next morning, she woke up to sunlight filtering through the curtains. The silence remained, but now it felt less oppressive. She made coffee, opened her laptop, and for the first time felt she could really get used to that solitary life. Still, as she walked to the living room, she noticed a detail she didn't remember seeing the night before. The armchair was facing the window. She could swear she had left it facing the television. She frowned and shook her head. It must have been my imagination. Yet, while drinking her coffee, she couldn't shake the strange feeling that, during the night, someone might have been there, watching the street. That morning went by normally. Clara spent hours writing, exploring new ideas that only the silence of that place seemed to allow. From time to time, she would glance at the armchair still turned toward the window. The detail bothered her, but she decided not to move it. Perhaps it was superstition or just curiosity, but there was something unsettling about the idea of shifting it. By nightfall, the fatigue from the move hit her hard. She prepared a simple meal, and while washing the dishes, she had the sensation of hearing a muffled sound coming from the hallway. She stopped, holding her breath. Nothing but silence. She shook her head, laughed at herself, and went back to scrubbing the plates, trying to ignore the chill that ran up her neck. Before going to bed, she made sure to lock every door and close every window. The night wind was blowing strong, and the creaks of it seemed louder than the day before. Upon entering the bedroom, she noticed the door was slightly ajar. She was sure she had closed it earlier. Still, she chalked it up to forgetfulness and pushed it until she heard the click of the doorknob. Hours later, a noise woke her. Clara sat up in bed, heart racing. The clock read just after 2 in the morning. The sound seemed to come from the hallway. Footsteps, dragging, as if someone was walking without haste. Summoning her courage, she opened the door suddenly. The hallway was empty, lit only by the pale moonlight slipping through the curtains. She went back to bed and pulled the blanket up to her chin, trying to ignore the pounding in her chest. It's an old house. It creaks, it breathes. That's all. The next morning, she found something even more disturbing. On the kitchen table, one of the plates she had washed was out of the dish rack, carefully placed on the table with cutlery beside it, as if someone had set the place for a meal. Clara stood frozen, staring at the scene for long seconds. There was no one there but her, no neighbor with access to the house, no plausible explanation. She took a deep breath and put the plate away, forcing herself to believe she had done it out of exhaustion and forgotten. But doubt began to settle in, silently. The following days brought new, unsettling details. Books she had left on the desk appeared on the bookshelf. A pen that had been on her notebook showed up on the hallway floor. Small things, but constant. On the third night, something harder to ignore happened.